You're listening to Film Seizure. This is Geoff.
And this is Jason, and you can catch us on Wednesdays weekly talking about some sort of movie.
Yeah, you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just search for Film Seizure. And as Jason said, check us out each week.
Yes, your Wednesdays should be less crappy because of us, we hope. Maybe. Or more crappy.
Or more crappy.
Who knows?
Either which way.
Wednesdays are always a crapshoot. Why not give us a try?
Exactly. Can't say it any better than that.
In a world where magic is real, death is the ultimate illusion. I was born to murder the world. Are you ready for my wisdom?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Film Seizure. I'm Jason Oliver.
And I'm Geoff Arbuckle.
And we have another edition of our Barker Bonanza.
Barker Bonanza!
We're just going with that now.
Yeah, I think so.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Bonanza.
That's what I put in. That's what I put into the description of the
the
episode.
I think we embrace it.
Sure.
Yeah. So what are we talking about this week?
We have 1995's Lord of Illusion, starring Scott Bakula and Kevin J. O'Connor and Famke Janssen.
Famke Janssen, yes.
The delectable Famke Janssen.
Much so, yes.
I saw this movie pretty close to the release date of late August 1995 when I was just freshly graduated from high school.
Yeah, I would have caught this on video not long after its release on video for sure. It was one we discussed this while we watched it. It was one I kind of picked up around the same time I think in The Mouth of Madness was on video.
Yeah, because In the Mouth of Madness was about 6 months before. I saw that in the theater also because that's one of the things that I don't know if you did this like right when you turned 17. It was like I'm gonna go see all the R-rated movies.
Yeah,
and and it's like I turned 18. I was like, man, where are the NC-17 movies at? It's like where are these fucking movies at?
There were a couple. I remember when Cronenberg's Crash was playing.
Oh yeah,
and
Crash.
that was like the
before that was
forbidden film.
Yeah, and before that was Henry and June.
Yeah.
June. Yeah, not
right.
Jude. June.
I didn't see that one actually.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Showgirls came out.
Showgirls was around that time.
But that didn't play long enough for me to see it in the theater.
Yeah,
I had to see that shit on.
The Sony Theater in Greenwood had both of those though.
Yep.
They had Showgirls and Crash, both the NC-17 versions.
Yeah. But so this was Lord of Illusions, August of 1995. I was really pretty excited about seeing this about doing this episode because this was one that, like I said, I kind of have a fond memory of seeing it as a fresh out of high school 18-year-old kid, and I kind of looked at this because I knew who. I mean, I'd seen. I'd seen Hellraiser, I'd seen Candyman, I'd seen a lot of things that Clive Barker was associated with, or I knew the name at least. And what was kind of cool about this was I kind of thought of this as, this was grown-up horror.
Yeah.
It wasn't Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger coming after you. It was sexier. It was more mature, seemingly. And so it kind of drew me to it, and I kind of felt like
there's a sense that there's something being said.
Yeah, and I think we'll get to that because I think there's a lot of interesting. I think there's a conflict in this as to what you actually see and what the movie's trying to say.
Yeah.
But no, I went in knowing full well, picking up somewhere along the line, maybe either in reviews or in Fangoria or something, I don't know, that there was a gay subtext to it, and that there were homoerotic the things to it.
Sure.
And I felt grown up. It's like I was 18 years old. It's like I'm no homo, but I can handle this stuff because I'm mature now. That's how we talked in 1995. But
Well, speak for yourself there, buddy.
well, I was 18. You weren't.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how us 18-year-old fellas talk. No, that's how us grown-ups talk. No, but seriously, there was a sense of, I'm mature now. I can handle this stuff and handle these different subtext and handle these different things that are being said or being shown. And I was no longer that 15-year-old who was afraid. It's like, oh, if I watch something with gay people in it, I'll be gay, or something like that. But
I think I was.
But we'll get to that.
I think I was a little more naive than that when I saw this. I was probably, I don't know, 95. It probably came out in video in 96.
Yeah, probably around
early
96.
I was probably like 17 when I saw this. And I don't know. I think I was a little more naive as far as that kind of stuff. I think a little bit of that went over my head because it's really not super overt.
No, it's. I mean, because I remember after seeing it, I was like, I thought we were going to see like gay sex, or
right?
But no, it's subtext.
I didn't really get any of that when I saw it, and I don't know. I think what I looked for in horror as a 17-year-old was just like gross, bloody stuff, you know? And it definitely delivered.
It does a little bit. Yeah, there's some gross stuff in this, but I mean, it's a little bit more. It's not as straight of horror as it was sold as.
Sure.
And we'll talk a little bit about that because what we watched for this was the director's cut. Now, last night, or at least the night before this recording, I watched the theatrical cut just to kind of. Because I hadn't seen the theatrical cut since it came out, so, 22 and a half years ago. Yeah, that's a long time to try to remember the details of a movie that I only was able to see once.
Yeah.
And then, because once it hit VHS, it was forever in director's cut at that point. But the Scream Factory, Shout Factory release had both.
And God bless them.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about those differences because I think there's a little bit of conflict between what the studio wanted and what they thought was marketable versus what Clive Barker was trying to say.
And I should say that I watched it right before we recorded this for the first time in quite some time. It had been quite a while since I'd seen it, and I'm pretty sure I had only ever seen the theatrical. But to be honest, my memory was pretty cloudy on what I had and hadn't seen. So really, it was kind of one of those viewings for me where it's like, oh, I totally remember this. I absolutely remember the illusion with the swords falling from the on the stage. Like there were things that the whole opening sequence was very vividly remembered, but I didn't really honestly remember much. Didn't really remember much about the overall story at all.
And I think that so. What you do have some connection to, or at least some remembrance of, is the short story, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've read that.
The Last Illusion was
called
that?
The Last Illusion.
Yeah.
I've read that more recently, but I'll be honest, and I'll probably have a few people that listen to this podcast that are fans of Barker will probably make me turn in some sort of card of some sort, but I find Barker's writing difficult to really get into, to grasp onto, and I've only read a little bit of his stuff. I've read Cabal, which I do like. I've read The Last Illusion, and it didn't really stick with me. I can't remember so much the comparisons between the two. I do remember it being a little bit more straightforward as far as, like, I think it starts with him being invited to meet with Swan and his Swan's wife, or maybe no, Swan's even dead, I think, when it starts. And he is invited to the mansion at the invitation of the butler and the wife.
Okay.
And that's kind of how he is drawn into this intrigue. So it definitely is like a leaner version of the story.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like Midnight Meat Train, which we talked about last week,
Right.
where it was they had to build a movie around a single scene that was depicted in the short story.
Yeah.
Because, again, short stories typically don't have multiple scenes to them.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think as there's some really, really interesting things, cool moments in Lord of Illusions, I do think it, again, suffers from the, all right, well, how do we make this short story into something more, and I don't know that it really hits that mark for me. That it sort of, I don't think that it necessarily earns its feature length.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
No, I think that makes sense because what this movie is about, for those people who haven't seen it or haven't seen it in a while, it starts off in 1982, and you see this desert place where you have these fucking hippies.
Geoff is a big fan of these hippies.
God,
he wants to be one of them so badly. He loves them so much.
Only to burn them down from the inside. So they follow this man named Nix, who has decided to call himself oh shit
I don't know, I just remember Nix.
Oh damn it.
Regardless, it's a whole thing while Geoff is looking up this guy's name. It's kind of like a Manson sort of deal. Like, you've got these crazy hippie people who are clearly like murderously insane. And then their leader, who is this charismatic old dude.
The Puritan, that's what
the
he
Puritan,
calls him. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
God.
And he
I'm embarrassed that I had we just
Puritan.
saw it. But I will say there is a reason why it's harder to remember tonight than it was last night. Oh, go ahead.
And anyway, it's clear that he's got some sort of magical powers.
He's what they would say later in the movie, he's juggling fire.
Yeah.
They said the two main things that the Puritan could do was that he could make people see the truth and get inside their heads to make them see the truth, specifically, and that he could juggle fire. And that's not like when you light the little things on fire and you juggle it. Like, he's literally got a ball of fire in his hand that he's juggling back and forth or playing with in a hand.
And he can kind of levitate too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is.
So he's clearly got some powers. But what's kind of weird already off the bat is how number one, like that anyone would be so weirdly into this guy.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of bizarre.
Well, he looks like Steve Bannon.
Yeah, he does.
He kind of looks like a fucking homeless guy who can't hardly make his alimony payments.
Yeah, who's like bleeding from his face. And, yeah,
he's got messed up hair.
Yeah. He's that guy who.
His belly's hanging out.
Yeah,
the
his
bottom
belly's
of his
hanging
shirt.
out. He's that guy that is clearly an alcoholic who always looks disheveled and nicks himself in trying to shave every morning. That's what this guy looks like.
So then he just kind of gives up and lets just the scruff go.
Yeah. So he's all kinds of disheveled, and he doesn't seem like anyone that
he seems like a guy who
would want to follow.
Right, but what you do kind of get the impression of is that he is able to kind of shill some pseudo philosophical religious ideas.
It's definitely kind of his shtick. Is he's somehow been able to harness some sort of power and has milked that for all it's worth. And he has managed to attract this ragtag bunch of goofy followers.
Well, it's the same thing that you always see a lot with, it's all those cults that we've joined over the years to get the figure.
To get the inside view.
You get the inside view, but it's always what you see and hear about cults and
it's always
groups,
the people on the outside who are like, what the hell did you see in this guy?
Right, it's the outsider who's looking for something more, looking to belong someplace, and this guy shills the right shit.
Yeah,
and they follow him, and so, but he does actually have a little bit of something. I mean, like he's fucking juggling fire at one point. Well, we'll get to that here in a second. But so he's got this little compound out in the middle of the desert. It's just this rundown shack where you expect to see these fucking hippie types. And
yes, it's where they congregate.
It's where they congregate,
right by the Joshua tree.
Yeah. And U2 like shows up and it's like, no,
no,
we'll wait until they leave until they move on. We're not going to take our picture of our album right now.
Oh, Bono is a cult leader in and of himself.
Yeah, well. But anyway, so one of his followers named Butterfield, which actually is a pretty big part in this movie.
He is the most interesting character in the movie, I think.
Yeah, you said he had a shitty name, but he's actually a super capable henchman.
But a very interesting character.
Yeah.
And he falls a little bit too cliche at the end by how his character ends up. And we'll get there. But he really is the whole reason that this movie moves.
Yeah. Yeah, he carries the movie, really.
Yeah.
He gets it from one scene to the next.
Yep.
And he kind of drives the horror element of it. But so he sees these cars, it's a car and a VW bus, of course, coming in the distance, and he runs in to tell the Puritan that Swan is coming.
Yes.
And the Puritan's like, oh, okay, well, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's how he kind of talks.
Here's a fireball.
Here's a fireball. Blah, blah, blah. And we find out that Swan has come to basically end the Puritan because the Puritan has kidnapped a 12-year-old girl.
Right.
And at first...
Is there a sense... I didn't catch it, but maybe I just missed it. Is there a sense that Swan knew this girl before?
No, but there was something about the girl that he became overtly heroic for.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, all right, so what came first? His love of this girl,
I think so,
or the kidnapping.
Well, the kidnapping came first, I think, because
then why did they kidnap her?
That's one of those things that. Yeah. Now, here's my impression of it, because when he shows up, he's got 3 friends with him, two ladies, and Quaid, which is a black guy, which we get to see again very quickly into the main meat of the story. And I think Quaid was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Because they're carrying shotguns and a bag of what you assume to be more weapons.
Yeah.
And Swan is very elevated as far as his anger and his demeanor, and he's basically saying, "It's well, if you don't want in on this, get the fuck out of here."
He's very righteous.
He is very righteous.
It's honestly his high moment of the film.
Right. He is I'm going in and I'm going to take care of this. And I think Quaid or one of the girls say at some point in time, it's so what? He took a little girl. Let's just get away from him. Let's just go away, Right. And Swan yells at them some more, and it's well, if you don't want in on this, then get out.
Right.
So they follow him in, and they look for the girl, and they look for Nix, and they see that the girl is kind of chained up. There's a fucking baboon there.
Yeah.
That Nix will
it's
let swap at her.
Yeah, he's taunting her with this baboon. It's really bizarre.
And the baboon's scary as fuck.
It's really scary.
Baboons
have some serious teeth, man.
Yeah, and for not being the biggest of the apes, I would feel better being around a gorilla.
I would too. That baboon was fucking scary.
Yeah, especially a baboon in heat. So
do you think its butt gets bigger when it's in heat?
I don't know.
Is that the females? I think they're
probably.
Butts get redder.
All I know is that the males would probably get more violent.
Yeah. Oof. I don't know. Baboons seem nasty to me.
Yeah, they are. Them. No, they're no bueno. But so Swan, they find the girl, and Swan has, is looking for Nix, and is going to basically, what we find out is he's going to bind Nix so that basically he cannot be resurrected. And so
this is again where I feel like we're getting into some territory that is never really explained or earned. All right, so there's a point later in the movie where Swan says, yeah, he could juggle fire and get into people's heads. Almost like he dismisses him completely as not that big a deal, but yet he's terrified of him and he has to bind him so he can't be resurrected. Where does this idea of resurrection even come from?
Well, I think the thing is I think they downplay his powers, but when our main hero Harry finds the information about Nix, he sees a little bit more subtext to what people are saying about Nix. Everybody mostly says Nix was an illusionist. He did things, and he was like a cult leader. He's very persuasive,
Right.
and he makes people see the truth that way. But I think what he discovered in the information about what Nix had uncovered, that he had gained more power than people are saying.
Yeah, well, like a central theme of this is that the thin line between divinity and trickery.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, they talk about that constantly.
Constantly. I mean, that is one of the prevailing themes of the movie, and I think that there is an interesting thing there where you have this character that has this questionable power that does seem more more powerful, I guess, than you first thought. But everybody takes him very seriously from the get-go. So you always get a sense that he's powerful, but you never really understand why.
Yeah, so right, because what they end up doing is when they find the girl, Nix has hidden himself in this hanging carcass.
Yeah.
That's in the little dungeon.
Yeah.
And
when we talk about Nightbreed, that was very Barker, so Barker.
Yeah. And so when the thing kind of twists on its own, because it just kind of dangles and spins on its own, Nix is hiding behind it, and he like floats down, sticks his fingers inside of Swan's head and makes him see things.
Yeah.
And he basically is trying to say your friends are nothing but monsters, so stay with me and I'll help you see past that and defeat them, but he ends up getting shot by the girl whose name is Dorothea, and he gets like Swan gets this stuff out of his bag that's like a really cool like contraption, like mask thing that's used to bind him. So he puts it on there, and he has to use his blood to tighten the bolts and everything. So it's very witchcrafty kind of.
We joked that it was way scarier and more effective than what they used to bind Julian Sands and Warlock. Effective. If Julian Sands had seen this contraption, he probably would have actually been terrified.
He'd been like, "Whoa,
other than
you guys really mean
those
business."
Stupid like finger cuffs or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Well, his pinkies were bound to his toes or something.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, this thing like fucking screwed into the guy's
his
face.
Head. Yeah.
So that kills Nix, and Swan's like, "We're gonna bury him where nobody can find him.
Super deep in the ground. Yeah.
Super deep in the ground where nobody can find him." So flash forward to 1995. And we meet our main hero, who is Harry D'Amour.
Harry D'Amour.
Played by Scott Bakula.
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, the first captain of the USS Enterprise. Fuck that shit.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I really wanted to like Enterprise. Didn't.
I never watched it.
You're not missing anything.
I did watch
rewrote.
I did see Major League 3 in the theater. At the Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Yep.
So Scott Bakula, fresh off his turn in Color of Night.
Oh God, yeah.
I want to watch that. We're gonna watch that.
Color of Night. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's gonna be like Sexy September or something.
Oh, did you just give away?
I just gave it away. Ooh, Sexy September. You heard it here first.
4 months early.
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna have to make good on that.
I guess
now.
we are.
Fuck. All right. Well, we're gonna see Bruce Willis's dong.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, his little peen. Bruce's Willis.
Yeah. So we find out that Harry D'Amour is a private investigator who is known in some circles for taking mystical cases, things that make him seem like he's a little bit of a quack or a crack.
Yeah. Like his last case was some sort of exorcism deal that it doesn't really actually ever pay off. for
Other
you.
than he's a little haunted by it.
But it haunts him. It definitely is. It's you get the sense that this is a guy where every case is like he carries it with him.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and it's just another like I don't know chip on the shoulder or whatever. That's probably not the right metaphor, but
Well, yeah, he's
weathered by his work.
Exactly, and a lot of people think that he's a kook, but he is a legitimately good private eye.
Yeah.
He gets visited by somebody who kind of outsources stuff to him.
There's actually an interesting way of describing Harry D'Amour, and it's by Butterfield's main henchman, and they're discussing him later in the film, and they're basically talking about like, is this guy going to be a problem? And they talk about the fact that his last case was an exorcism, and Butterfield says, "Oh, he's a priest," and his henchman says, "No, he's not a priest. He's just got like a knack for this thing. Like,
Yeah,
he's just somehow in tune with."
Right. He's been. You almost get the impression that he's been touched by something.
Yeah.
Because at one point he even tells somebody that he's given pretty much every religion a try. That there's, that you can never have too many saviors, and that he has, he's got a Catholic angle to him. He's got. At one point he says that he was a Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another one in there. But he's got. He knows his stuff. That's the impression you're given through dialogue and through exposition and stuff like that.
He's like Santos from Southland Tales. I gotta work the Rock into this somehow. Sorry, that's a big diversion.
Yeah.
Back on track.
So he is sent out he's hired by this person to go track down a tax, somebody who basically, it's insurance fraud, not tax fraud.
It's
so
something
he's sent
super banal. Yeah,
You're right.
It's
so he gets sent out to follow a guy who has committed insurance fraud. He follows him from a hotel where he's basically screwing a couple of hookers in a weird sex party. He follows him from there to a fortune teller's place, which is Quaid, which is the black fella at the beginning.
This is silly as fuck too, because all right, this guy has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the plot.
No, it's all accidental.
And he gets a phone call, and he all of a sudden has to leave his like two hookers that are both got their breasts out and are ready to party.
He pays them though.
Yeah, but he leaves to go get his tarot read by an Afro dude.
Well, but here's the thing.
Like,
it's
what?
L.A. It's L.A., man.
But that's weird to me. Like, what?
He ran off with a bunch of money in the insurance fraud. He can get those hookers again.
It's just strange because why? But okay.
So he leaves. He gets followed by Harry. The guy goes into the fortune teller's place and then runs out.
Yeah.
And runs into Harry.
He saw
and Harry
some shit, and he runs into Harry. Harry's like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And he goes and he investigates.
And he finds Quaid. Well, actually, first you have the sharp-toothed henchman of Butterfield.
Yeah.
Who's a henchman's henchman at that point.
Oh, yes.
Who bites Harry and kind of gets.
He's got those sharpened teeth.
Yeah.
He's scary looking.
And he tries to beat up Harry, but Harry fights him off, goes into this room and finds Quaid with all of these scalpels sticking out of his face.
Yeah.
And that's where Harry meets Butterfield. And so, long story short, Butterfield escapes. Quaid dies, but warns that the Puritan
is coming. Yeah.
And that he's going to dig himself out. And at that point also, that's where it kind of comes back around to some of that early characterization for Harry, that he's touched darkness, and that he's, and that Quaid has basically told him, it's like, oh, you were drawn to the darkness time and time again and stuff like that. So
and Butterfield's whole thing is that he's trying to find out where the Puritan was buried. I mean, that's literally what his whole shtick is.
Yeah, 'cause you
so
find out-
he's trying to track down all of these people who were in on killing him and burying him because he ran away.
Yes, because it was you get the impression that the police came.
Yeah.
Because you heard the sirens and everything, which kind of brings up another question later, but we'll get to that later. So Quaid is probably telling the truth, which was I wasn't there. I wasn't part of the burial, and that indicated that Swan kept that relatively hush hush, where in the event that anybody ever came back looking for him, that nobody but him and his worthless butler would know.
Oh, and that's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Not a fan of that plot point.
So Quaid dies, and Harry does the right thing. He calls the police.
Yeah. I was actually surprised by that.
Yeah.
Like, if this were fucking, like, any of the new Marvel Netflix shows, that person would have gotten the fuck out. They were not going to deal with the cops. Like,
right.
Like,
Daredevil's
Matt
gone.
Murdock's gone. Like, Jessica Jones is... Well, actually, Jessica Jones, against all odds, would be the one that would stick around.
Because she had a lawyer.
Right. Yeah. And she's a PI.
Right.
The rest of them are like, peace out.
We're vigilantes.
We're not
We got to get out of here.
Cops, yeah.
Luke Cage, I'm not going back to jail.
Shit, fuck no.
No. So.
But yeah, I was surprised by that because it was
Yeah.
almost like maybe I don't even remember if the '90s were that naive, but I was immediately thinking, oh hell, he's got to get the hell out of there. I
Right.
just said it out loud. It's like he got to go.
Yeah, but no.
But
no,
he sticks around.
He does the right thing.
And the cops are weirdly like nonchalant about the whole thing.
Well, they see all. This is the shit part of LA.
It's shit LA. Yeah, they see weird shit every day.
Yeah. Well, which is funny because like, well, and I kind of get the impression it's like this is why, because every time Harry goes into a building or goes into a room, he's got his gun drawn.
Yep.
I kind of feel like this is like his way of, that's cool because I'm going to bring the cops in on this.
Yeah. Well, he does. I mean, he breaks into every building he walks into. If he doesn't break in, he's shoving people out of the way. Like he's ridiculous. He
belongs everywhere.
He breaks into the Magic Castle, which is hilarious. I'm sure it's a real place. It's like
I bet it is.
It's like a hangout for LA magicians, and
like a little museum.
And they have a secret room that has all the secrets of magic.
But also people do shows there. I think that is a real place.
I think
actually.
it is. Yeah.
This is not the first movie I've seen something like
he
this.
He breaks into it and he shoots it up, and it's like, that's
Harry. But so this kind of brings him in a little bit deeper. He is completely and totally thrown aside the insurance fraud guy because now the cops know that he was looking for him and they know who to look for. So now
that whole thing is done.
That whole thing is gone. That whole reason why he's in LA is done.
We no reason actually.
20 minutes into the movie, done.
Yep.
He's done with that before the first reel is done.
Yep.
And so he ends up getting called by a man named, what ends up happening is we do meet Swan in the present with Dorothea, the girl that was captured earlier, is now grown up.
13 years later.
And very hot.
Into
Famke Janssen. Man, yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, she is all over this movie, and I like it.
Yeah.
And so they're married now, but they're not married for love. She says she hints at the fact that they basically are married for other reasons, and that's probably to protect one another.
Yeah, you get the sense. I think this is the first part where some of that. Like homosexual or overtones or undertones or however, whatever tones you want to call it, kind of come out. Because I do actually think that Swan is probably homosexual.
Or at least bisexual.
Yeah, and he does love Althea, is that what
Dorothea.
It is? Dorothea. But yeah, their relationship is not physical.
No. She says that a few times, and like he does have feelings for her.
And I think
and he admits that later, and she even says that he loved me, but it does not seem like it is a heterosexual love.
Yeah, you get the sense that maybe she fell in love with him as well because he was her protector, her savior in a way.
But not the same kind of sexual love.
No,
it's a hero worship.
It's almost more paternal.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Yeah,
yeah,
it is, because she fully admits and is actually kind of laying the seeds when she meets Harry, that it's like, this is, hey, this could be a thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm married, but not for the reasons that you think. But it's also none of your business why we're married.
Yeah.
And which is, whatever. But so she's like, I think Swan is in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you come with me to his show? This is his last show for this thing. He's going to premiere this new illusion. Why don't you come check it out, meet him, talk to. And at this show, Swan apparently dies. He's strapped down to a table. He's got these.
It's a cool scene.
These swords that are falling down towards him, and it's an escape act. It's not really an illusion.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of interesting, because I think he's still trying, even though he does do his powers of like levitation and things like that during the show. I think this is his way to try to show that he's more of an illusionist, not an actual magician.
He uses his actual magical powers to, I think, give him. It's probably the magical powers are probably what has made him famous.
Yes.
But he doesn't make them necessarily the focus of his act, because he even makes
he's an escape artist.
He even makes the comment at some point that magicians are run out of this town or run out of this business.
Right. It's said
people
a
don't
few
want
times,
magic.
It's said a few times that illusions, illusionists are not magicians, because magicians are are more divine, and I think that it's kind of.
I think people
it's kind of like witchcraft.
Well, people will be scared away by magic, and as his butler actually when he's talking to Harry, and Harry calls Swan a magician. He's like, yeah, he's a great magician, and his butler says, he's not a magician. He's very adamant about that. He's an illusionist. And Harry asks, well, what's the difference? And the difference is magicians do it for real.
Right.
But which is ironic because Swan does do some of this for real, but he doesn't want people to think that he is doing it for real.
Right.
He wants them to think he's just tricking them in a way that they can't figure out.
Right. And because that even angers some people at the Magic Club too, because
they don't understand his act.
They don't understand his act. They think that if he is involved with magic, that he's evil, and of course Dorothea just kind of just throws that away as being that they're jealous of him,
right,
and of his act.
But in reality, they're probably onto something, because if they don't understand it, then there's probably two points of view here. If they don't understand it, then he's not willing to share, which means that he doesn't trust them enough to talk about his act amongst the secret society that is illusionists, right? Or two, he is actually doing real magic, which is pretty scary stuff.
And it's kind of frowned upon.
And yeah, right. And that's honestly, like, most, you talk to like a Penn and Teller, right?
Yeah.
Like they would tell you that any or like an Amazing Randy, like any person who says that they're doing real magic is not to be trusted. Like, those are the scum of their brotherhood and sisterhood, right? Like, the moment you start trying to tell people that you actually have powers beyond, the natural realm, right? Then you're just a charlatan, right? Like the Uri Gellers of the world, right? They're despicable.
Right, so, because they're preying upon people's sense of wonderment and beliefs.
Right. So that's part of the reason, I think, too, why this society at the Magic Castle doesn't like him, because they're just not sure about him. They don't understand what he's up to. Is he doing magic? Is he not? He doesn't really want to share. He's kind of cagey. He's like fucking probably like some kind of Chris Angel shit, man. I don't know. Although that's not really fair. Chris Angel, as douchey as he is kind of like a Houdini.
Yeah,
disciple.
I think he's always said that he's an escape artist,
Yeah,
and an illusionist. More
the
than
best
anything.
example, honestly, is like a Yuri Geller.
Yeah.
Right? The guy who actually says he has the power in his mind to bend a spoon. Bullshit, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, so what happens is that Swan is trying to escape this spinning table with these swords that are falling down on him, and he escapes 2, but then the rest of them start sticking him, and the crowd is aghast, and Harry realizes something's not right, and sure enough, apparently he is dead.
Yes.
And so Harry is deals with the sharp-toothed man, who he kills this time. Finally, the first time around he gets thrown out a window, but
he survives that sucker, man.
Yeah.
He's like pulling these huge shards of glass out of his stomach.
yeah. And so this time, underneath the stage of the magic show, again Butterfield escapes, but he says something really important, which is, we didn't kill him. We don't have a reason to kill Swan. Yeah. He actually did not intend to kill him, just to find out where. I mean, because he needs him alive. He can't. Swan cannot die for Butterfield to get what he wants.
Right. In some ways, that's probably the worst thing that could happen.
Right.
For Butterfield, because if anyone knows where the Puritan is buried, it's Swan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he. So what ends up happening is that, Harry digs a little bit deeper. He meets some people at this magic club called the Magic Castle, which is kind of an awesome place. I hope that place is real, because next time I'm in LA, I got to go there.
It's got to be real.
Because it's just a bunch of old magicians hanging out. And that's where he kind of ruffles some feathers a little bit with one of the people who has one of 3 keys into the most secretive room with all the secrets of magic.
All the secrets of magic, yes.
Or illusions, whatever they say. And so he kind of ruffles the feathers, because like this guy's a total showman. He speaks in an accent, but Harry sees right through it. It's like, oh, what's that, Brooklyn accent? And the guy's like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah, he really tears this guy down pretty quickly.
In front of a bunch of people, too.
He makes him look foolish.
And so he ends up befriending this other illusionist that helps him get into the magic room. That's where he finds out a little bit more about Nyx. But in the meantime, he starts to get a little bit closer to Dorothea, starts to learn a little bit more, realizes that she doesn't take well to hearing the name Nyx, and that there is a deepening history with her and Swan that he wants to find out more about. Long story short, they end up fucking.
Yep.
And
balls deep.
Yeah, it's a pretty hot scene. And a lot of that was cut out of the theatrical version. So they he gets visited by, or the house gets visited by some illusion that looks like some sort of lawnmower man
That's
thing.
not ever really clear. What is
it's Swan. It's Swan that's doing it.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's trying to scare Harry off.
Or something. Yeah, he's trying to basically. It's Swan that's doing it.
It's 90s SFX.
Yeah.
At their greatest?
Question mark?
Well,
no, because
at their cheapest.
Yeah, because 2 years before was Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly. They're like it's like very Lawnmower Man-esque. Yeah,
it's all like hexagonal shapes and
it's like
angular shapes.
What do you say, Star Fox? Yeah,
Star Fox. Yeah, it's that. Yeah,
it's a virtual fighter.
But so what ends up happening is that he sees this thing, but it realizes that something about how it stops from attacking him when he is in the room where Swan's casket is, realizes that Swan has faked his death.
Yeah.
And he pulls him out of hiding by staging a funeral for him and then following him to his place, where he then says, okay, well,
at this point too, you find out that the butler was in on the whole thing.
Yes.
Like he knows.
The butler knows that Swan has faked his death. The butler also knows where Nyx is buried, which we find out because he gets tortured by Butterfield.
And why would this guy know? Because we had to move the plot.
I guess, yeah. So Harry ends up coaxing Swan back out to help Dorothea. They realize that Butterfield has kidnapped her, and Butterfield has got both Dorothea and Valentin, which is the butler, and he is being driven out to where the Puritans been buried. They dig him up, and they Butterfield begins the practice of bringing him back to life, to resurrecting him, and all of his followers have come back. All these fucking losers.
There's a cool scene.
There is a cool scene,
like and I guess montage sequence.
Right. There's a montage that was cut out of the theatrical cut that we saw tonight, which I think is very interesting because it shows that these followers have received a letter that basically invites them to come back because Nyx is going to be resurrected.
Yeah.
And so you see that they have killed off their wives, their families, and like this one
really
woman.
creepy.
This one woman has killed her husband and both of her small children.
Small children, yeah.
And they actually show like the dead bodies of the children, which is not something that you would have seen in a theatrical release in 1995.
No, you really would not have.
You may not see it today, but.
It's not something that Barker shies away from. Like
No. Everybody is guilty in some way, shape, or form.
There is a child that is killed at near the beginning of Nightbreed. He understands the horror of that, and it's almost dishonest, to shy away from it.
Sure, yeah, because these people are being summoned back into the fold, really, and they get there and they start, like, kind of having a weird orgy where they're scalping themselves and fucking assholes.
Yeah, again, I'm gonna keep honestly this whole last act or scene. I don't know. It's almost like the whole last act is the last scene.
Yeah.
Is so fucking Barker meets Cronenberg meets Barker again.
Yeah.
It is sort of surreal. It doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense, but
there's pain and pleasure. There's mutilation.
There's a lot of this talk about flesh.
Yeah.
And
submitting yourself to
the Puritan.
pain.
The Puritan keeps saying, to Swan, she's just flesh. Like there's something beyond the flesh, right?
Right. It's like the Puritan wanted him and Swan to elevate themselves to the next plane of existence, whatever that may be.
And yeah, there's this other major theme of the movie. It's the bookend of the film, quite honestly. It's flesh is a trap and magic sets us free.
Right.
So that's what the Puritans' whole mantra is that this physical world, this flesh, this body, these fleshy things that you are you cling so much to, they're nothing. They're just the trappings of this reality. There's something else.
There's something beyond that,
which is so Hellraiser.
Oh yeah.
It's Cronenberg. It's fucking Videodrome. The All Hail the New Flesh. I mean, it's so interesting to me again how this concept is. I feel like it's shared between Barker and Cronenberg. So much so, I think that Cronenberg, agreed to be in Barker's Nightbreed. And there's a line in Nightbreed, flesh for the beast. It's this whole concept of humanity is just kind of these bags of meat, right? But there's something else. Like there's something else to attain and become.
If you want something enough, or if your soul is attuned to something enough that you live beyond that,
you can transform yourself into something greater. Yeah,
not necessarily better, just
right.
greater,
just more powerful, right? And that power always comes at a price.
You're right.
Yeah,
and that always seems like that's. I mean, we saw that with Rawhead Rex.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there was a certain extent in. With Candyman, there was certainly power in legend and power that lived beyond.
Oh, most definitely. And
the mortal realm.
Well, there you go again. Like the sacrifice, right? Mm-hmm. The sacrifice of your body, right? Be my victim. It's all there. It's absolutely all there.
Right.
It's this, and that's that scene in this one, Lord of Illusions, where they're cutting their hair and they're tearing their scalp, and their scalp is bleeding. I mean, there's a scene in Nightbreed we'll talk about, I think next week.
Yeah.
Where a character scalps himself to prove his worth, to be taken to this other place where he's gonna live a better life, right? So it's so very much Barker to symbolize your skin, your hair, these things that we obsess about in normal society,
shedding
it to become.
Well, it's a chrysalis. It's becoming something different and new and better.
Yeah. I mean, Hellraiser, your flesh is torn by the Cenobites, right? It's
the what sights we have to show you, and like the beauty of what this other dimension provides. What they don't realize though is that what they find beautiful, something else finds terrible.
But it's like it's a baser, pure state.
Yeah, it's
free of any trappings of any actual vanity. It's
and mortality.
It's really truly like a, I don't know, like a just
well, it's an interdimensional thing, and I think that's why later on Harry D'Amour from the story that this was based on, The Last Illusion, ended up in the world of Hellraiser.
Yes.
And they were interwoven, because this is about the next step beyond the physical dimension. And Hellraiser 2 is all about entering a second dimension or another dimension of being, and so on and so forth. So but we'll talk all about that stuff later.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
So with this so
it's just hard. It's hard to not talk about those things when you talk about one, because I really do feel like a shared universe.
It really kind of is. I mean, it's and this might be somewhat blasphemous, but I have always kind of felt like Stephen King's shared universe was forced. It was, well, my fans like all this stuff, so why don't I try to put them all together and have something that ties together that. Yeah, while it almost feels like fan service, whereas this feels like there's a natural fit to these things.
It's thematic with Barker. With King, I don't know. I think King probably just started having a lot of fun with it.
Sure.
And
but that's why I say it feels a little bit more forced. It's like, well, why not?
Here's what I think it is with King more than anything. I think that with King, it's his mind. His mind is like, I'm writing this thing, but what about this tangent? What about this tangent? What about this tangent? And instead of like purposely writing stories that fit, I think that's just the way his mind works. His mind
feels like a lot of how mind works on cocaine.
Well, yeah, probably at first that's the way it was. But it's like
certainly during Maximum Overdrive.
But that guy, if you listen or read about the way he talks about writing, his brain is always coming up with ideas, and those ideas.
It always feels like he's always trying to rework and perfect an idea.
And those ideas are all coming from the previous idea or ideas he's had. So I don't necessarily think it's forced. I just think it's like all branches from a tree.
So you're saying that he's the literary George Lucas, that his art has never completed, that he always has to go back and tweak things and tweak ideas.
I don't think he necessarily does that either. I just think that in lieu of going back and changing things, he expounds upon it with something tangential, and he sees where it goes. I think he's actually a little more extemporaneous than people give him credit for.
Yeah, maybe.
But that's for another day, probably.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, what my well, no, never mind. You should have read this months before, so if you have read my worst movie of 2017, you'll understand my love-hate relationship with Stephen King.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, the end of this movie comes down to a showdown between, Nix wants Swan to return. He kind of throws aside Butterfield, which we'll get to that subtext here. I promise we're getting to it.
Yes.
But he also he forsakes his own followers, really, because the first thing he asks them to do is to suffer for him.
Yeah.
So they've broken all this glass and they kneel on the glass to
will you suffer to come unto me, which is so, oh man, like it's like Christianity.
Yeah.
And it's dark.
Yeah, it is.
Right? And it's something that Barker always comes back to.
Right. It's and so these people, like they've hurt themselves for. They ultimately they go into this room where he promises to give them his sermon on death.
Yeah.
And what he tells them is, well, and this is kind of interesting because this is something that the Flash has explored too. But he basically says, when I was reborn or when I was resurrected, something has to be returned for me to be here. So he's giving death all of his followers, and so he basically causes them to sink into the ground, almost like they've been planted into the ground, and then he dries them out with like a sun.
Oh, and it cracks me up because one of his followers flips him off.
Yeah,
as he's being
like,
stuck in the ground. He's like, "Fuck you, Puritan." Kills me.
These people have killed their loved ones to return to him. But so anyway, and these fucking assholes had it coming.
They
it's like
really did.
You really thought that this was going to end well.
Nobody gives two shits about these people.
No, especially me.
Yes.
So he, which is funny because, like I said, the Flash kind of touches on that too. Because like, if somebody leaves the Speed Force, they have to replace them with some. That was something on the TV show The Flash. But so anyway, so it's kind of that idea of you take something from death, and this is in Norse mythology too.
Yeah, it is.
Hela doesn't let anybody leave her realm without it being replaced by something. Of course, nobody wants to leave Valhalla, but she tortures. Her domain is full of torture and fire and brimstone.
Well, it's a common sort of balance, right?
It's a balance.
Like
it's exactly a balance.
You take from one thing, you have to give back to another. Yeah.
Right. And so it's the whole same idea. It's like, well, because Nyx is resurrected, somebody has to pay for that. And he gives death all of his followers.
Yeah.
Because all he cares about is Swan.
He paid a few years in advance.
Right. Yeah. So all he wants is for he and Swan to basically be what I kind of look at as an Adam and Eve of the apocalypse. Basically,
he says, I was born to murder the world.
And he basically expected Swan to be the person he would spend eternity with to keep him company, as he says.
Yeah.
That's just a veiled, it's like basically he's creating his own version of this horrific paradise that he plans to spend with the only person he did care about, which was Swan.
Right.
So now we're getting into that homoerotic stuff.
Yeah, we're also getting into a lot of bullshit that isn't earned.
Well,
because sure, he's powerful, he's dangerous, but you never get the sense that he's going to murder the world.
Well, once he is resurrected, you see him do things that he's never shown before.
Sure.
So it's almost like his power came from being killed, that he lifted the veil on death, which then basically freed him from. I can't believe I'm the fucking one that's getting philosophical here with you.
That's good.
No, it's not. This is your job.
No, but this is awesome. I'm buying it. Yeah,
okay.
He lifted the veil on death. I like that.
Which basically unleashed his final version of himself, which is this all powerful. Well, Harry says at one point in time, if he can be resurrected, he is not a man; he's a god.
But he can still be shot in his butthole forehead.
Well, he didn't die from that.
That's true.
He woke back up.
That's true.
He's like, ha!
I gotcha.
But yeah,
I'm gonna fall in this convenient pit instead.
Yeah, well, right. He opened up the pit in which he ultimately falls into, that dumbass. Yeah. Anyway, he's almost as dumb as his hippie followers. No, because evil is bad, kids.
What did you say? It's like, hey, that's the bottomless pit the girl from Rawhead Rex was talking about.
Fucking asshole. That's what a bottomless pit is.
Except it did have a bottom.
a lava bottom.
Yeah, but it was bottom.
Yeah.
What was at the bottom of lava? I don't know. The core
of the earth.
The core of the earth.
That was a big hole that he fell into.
It was.
So we're getting ahead of ourselves of what this hole is. But so now we're kind of getting into the idea of if you are able to remove the illusion of death, you become all powerful. So now you've got this
Lord
element.
of Illusions.
He is now the Lord of Illusions.
Yeah.
That's why he's on the cover of the box, kids.
Yeah.
He's also showing his hand that.
Well, he's also transcended the flesh, right?
Right. Which also means that maybe it's not necessarily a homoerotic thing with Swan, which I'll get to here in a moment. But there's certainly a homoeroticism with Butterfield and Nix.
You've got the subtext of this movie down.
I do, dude.
I like it.
This, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Good.
I do. I get it.
Well, you have watched it twice in 48 hours, so I would hope you did.
I got it. Anyway, so Butterfield as a follower, because oftentimes you hear about relationships between followers and cult leaders, or how sometimes you hear about nuns with being brides of Christ, or or priests giving up their own wants and desires for the Lord and all of that.
Yep.
Butterfield kind of has that, but there is clearly maybe more of a sexual thing or something, but he's resurrecting Nix for love, whereas Nix still
he's not doing it for power. You don't ever get that sense.
He's doing it for his love of his of his God, of his master. You know.
Well, but fucking A. I mean, let's think about that for a second. Let's really boil that down. I mean, if you have seen someone who, and I'm kind of contradicting what I was saying probably half an hour ago about throwing fire and levitating everything, and how kind of like, whoa, good for you. Why would I murder a bunch of people for that? But actually, that's a pretty powerful thing to see.
This person has power of some sort.
For someone who maybe is looking for that void in their life. And
that's how cults get made.
And most religions, aren't doing it for you. And you actually see this guy who's got some legit magical powers. Yeah,
you're seeing the miracle.
You're seeing God in your mind.
Yeah. And so, but what's funny is though it's Nix's own desire for Swan to be with him in eternity, which actually undoes him. Or undoes him. Undoes.
Undoes him. Yes.
Undoes. So he still is, because at one point in time, Nix is trying to get Swan to join him once he's been resurrected, and Swan's like, I mean, I can't beat you. Basically is what he's saying. He's almost submitting, but but Nix realizes that Swan still has feelings for Dorothea. Which means, why do you still have feelings for this bitch? Is what he says.
He does say that, yeah.
Because she is just simply flesh. Don't you understand what you're giving up?
She's just flesh. That's what he says.
She's fleeting, is what he's saying, basically. And so he's like, don't you understand that you're giving up the greater power for something that is so minute and fleeting?
And maybe he's right.
But his jealousy over Dorothea is what is what ultimately defeats him, because he can't have what he wants, which he should have transcended beyond his own wants. It's what brings down Butterfield. It's what brings down Nix. It's all of. But there's also the other angle. What I was going to say, which is not necessarily homoerotic, but what's typically called homosocial, whereas he just wants to hang out.
Wants the dude to hang out with.
Well, he wants the dude to hang out with that had the most power out of all. All of the other people only knew how to resurrect him.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to do the things that Swan knew. So it was almost like Swan was a disciple. So, hey, why don't you come with me and we'll make the world what we want? That doesn't necessarily mean it was a romantic relationship.
It was someone he could relate to.
It was someone he could relate to, which can sometimes also play into love, too.
Absolutely.
But it's...
it was a bromance.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, but it's almost beyond the physical act of love.
Maybe they would have done a podcast together.
Maybe. We have just torn down the whole world.
Geoff, I think our new motto for film Seizure should be let's murder the world.
Let's murder the world. Let's fucking murder the world.
No, we were born.
We were born to murder this
the
fucking
world.
Fucking assholes. I'm going to get me a bunch of hippies. And I'm going to kick them in the balls every chance I get. Fucking assholes. So, but anyway, so the end of the movie, I kind of wish this had changed. The one thing with the theatrical cut is that it is much, much simpler. It is almost 15 minutes shorter, and it almost entirely cuts out the meaty parts of the detective story.
Yeah.
It focuses on the horror and the mystical stuff and stuff like that. It seems much more quicker to get Harry and Dorothea together, as opposed to seeing him kind of being drawn into this world a little bit longer, a little bit deeper, a little, like you get when you see them get together in the director's cut, it seems like, okay, this is much more natural now. The other part seems like Hollywood bullshit.
You kind of feel for Barker because he had just made Nightbreed, which got shredded to bits. It was probably one of the worst experiences of his life, he'll probably say, the theatrical cut of that film. And he said, what was it, the note before we watched this movie?
Yeah.
He's like he agreed to the theatrical cut of Lord of the Illusions because he was basically promised
the director's
that
cut,
the director's
in the
cut
release.
Would be in the
home video
the home
release.
video release. Yeah,
right. And I think that a lot of it, I mean, there is the studio wanted Clive Barker horror. They wanted Hellraiser. They didn't want his, because he says in the note that opens the director's cut that he loves noir.
Yeah.
And that was, that's what he wanted the story to be. That's what the short story was a detective story with
that's what
mystical
Transmutations
elements.
was supposed to be. It was
Right.
like monster noir, yeah.
Yeah, and so he had to sacrifice that to get the release. And what the studio didn't make him reshoot anything. They just excised stuff.
Yeah.
And, about 15 minutes worth of story.
Yeah.
My only complaint is that the movie ends almost with either a tease of a sequel or a, did you get it?
Yeah.
Because they replay the stuff that was at the very beginning where Nyx is talking about his power and about, how he's going to be the Puritan and he was going to basically cleanse the world. And Dorothea's comment about how, the idea that that death sets, or that magic sets everybody free.
Flesh is a trap.
That flesh is a trap.
And magic sets us free.
And I kind of wish that was not in the director's cut, but I can't be the guy who says I like the narration in Blade Runner and didn't like the narration in this.
Oh boy, that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. Well,
when we talk about that.
There is one thing I do want to mention about one of the actors in this movie. Daniel von Bergen, who played Nyx, the Puritan. There's an interesting story.
Steve Bannon.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting story about him that I kind of now feel bad that we talked about him in that side. But he passed away some years ago. Not actually, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. He passed away. What had happened was, about 6 months or a year before he passed away, he tried to commit suicide.
Okay.
And he actually shot himself in the head, and it didn't take. And he got help, But what had happened was, for the last couple of years of his life, ever since he had basically quit acting, and he was living in just some, like Columbus, Ohio, or Toledo, or something like that, just some middle of nowhere place compared to being an actor who was in a lot of the things that we've seen, both in TV and movies. But he had diabetes, and a few years before he committed suicide, he had one of his legs amputated. And before he attempted to kill himself, he was going to go into an operation to have more like what was left of his other leg, like some of his toes were going to be amputated, and he didn't want to go through that, so he tried to kill himself.
Right.
And it was later discovered he did later die from other reasons, but it was always undisclosed what he died of. But it's kind of a sad story that this guy who was basically living in just utter pain for the last few years of his life, going through diabetes and going through amputations, and basically was living in destitute. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of an interesting but sad story about a guy that, when you see this movie, it's like, yeah, I've seen that guy in other, he's played some detective in something, or like he was in a ton of TV shows in the 90s. And a couple of movies in the mid 90s. I think he was even in what was the Demi Moore G.I. Jane? He was in that shortly after this, and a couple of other things right around the time that Lord of Illusions was in. He was just a character actor, but but the real life guy, kind of had an unfortunate end to his story.
Well, hopefully he escaped the trap of flesh.
I think he probably did.
Yep.
Yeah. I like to think that there is somebody with two different colored eyes named, I don't know, Margarine Grass, who has resurrected him.
Yes.
Into some sort of gooey monster thing that he's living out his plan to murder this world.
To murder the world. Maybe he's moved on to the universe.
Maybe.
He's going to murder the universe.
Maybe. Or maybe he's just like, yeah, Earth was okay. It's like, I'm going to go murder Venus.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Fuck Venus. I mean,
yeah, it's
who
hot.
cares?
It's hot. It's stupid. Bunch of clouds. Can't see anything anyway.
Was that how we're going to end this thing?
No, let's end it a different way.
What are we going to end it with?
Let's talk about Scott Bakula here real quick.
All right.
Scott Bakula is a very, very important piece to our generation. I mean, he was Sam in Quantum Leap.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
And Quantum Leap was Sunday night TV watching.
Yeah.
And it was fucking fantastic theme song.
Oh yeah. God.
And
that Quantum Leap was just the shit.
It was a fun little sci-fi show about a guy who jumped bodies. If you haven't seen it, I mean, if you're our age or anybody that we care about, you've seen Quantum Leap. If you haven't seen Quantum Leap,
watch it.
Yeah, go join a cult and be a hippie douche.
I used to show it when I was my freshman year of high school when I was homeschooled. They used to show it on TBS, I think, from like 3 p.m. or maybe even earlier, like 2 p.m. to like 5 p.m. They'd show 3 episodes every day, and I'd watch it. They showed it in sequence, which was the best. And I would watch like every single season of Quantum Leap from beginning to end in a year, and it was the best.
For a little while there, most of the episodes were on Netflix, I think. Which is funny because I don't think every episode was on there, and my guess is because he leaped into something in like the 60s or 70s where they had music
they didn't have the music rights.
They couldn't get like fucking Wonder Years. They've changed all the music,
and it's still one of the greatest finales of all time. Like so perfect.
Yeah, and so but the guy has not had a particularly fantastic career.
He really hasn't. Yeah.
I mean, he did this movie. He did.
But everybody recognizes him.
Yeah, everybody likes him. Everybody loves Scott Bakula.
Is he on one of like the CSIs or?
He's on.
Law and Orders or something.
No, it's.
He's on one of those stupid procedurals.
It's the New Orleans. Is it NCIS New Orleans?
Oh God.
Because it's him on one.
God. At least he's still getting a paycheck. Good for you, Scott Bakula.
Yeah, because he's got a southern. He's got like a southern accent. God. But whatever, he's getting paid.
You couldn't pay me to watch one of those fucking shows, though.
It's just because it was on CBS.
Just NCIS.
Oh, we've talked about the kooky
fucking,
lab women.
So stupid
on those shows. They're all fucking the same character.
So fucking stupid.
But no, he had a shot. He was a captain of an Enterprise in Enterprise.
Yeah.
It's like he was the only other kind of name that. I mean, he was the only person who kind of came in already with a career behind him.
Yeah, you wonder kind of what is the deal, because you're right. Everybody likes him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's never like the thing you criticize about the stuff he's in. He's always like elevating it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was a legitimate hero in this movie. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I was cool with him.
And honestly, he played the part well. I
Yeah.
thought. I mean, I'm sure he was hoping it would be a character he could play over and over again, because I know that the Harry D'Amour character in Barker is sort of like a thing. You know, it's a recurring character.
In fact, one of my notes was I would love to see more of his adventures.
Yeah.
Whether it be a prequel or
You could almost
a sequel.
You could almost do like a TV show
Yeah.
of that character.
Oh,
I mean,
the Night Stalker.
Yeah. I mean, you could watch. He could come back even now at his
Yeah.
age and probably play
still
this
do
character.
still do some things where it's
Yeah.
like, I was part of that thing with the Swan guy.
Yeah. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Get on that, Hollywood.
Yeah, Seraphin.
Well, we don't have to hold them responsible. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't Clive Barker's fault.
No, I'm just saying, do it. Seraphin
Oh.
can do it. They can produce it.
If you want to do it with younger people, and do like a prequel thing,
That'd be good too.
that'd be fine.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
I think there's something there.
Sure.
I think it could really actually be a good TV show.
Yeah.
His character. Yeah.
But so you want to start winding this one down?
Yeah, I mean, all right.
Let's how many falling swords from a spiraling mobile do you want to give this?
Let's see. How many missed and how many caught me in the flesh? I don't know. I'd say out of 5 swords falling from the ceiling, three caught me in the flesh.
Okay, so 3 really dug in.
Yeah, 3 really dug in. I think it's pretty good. I think it definitely falls victim to a little bit of the short story into feature trap. Not nearly as much as Midnight Meat Train, which I honestly think is just a bad disaster.
I think we're digging ourselves out of that one.
Yeah, I really do believe Lord of Illusions did fall into some of those traps, but for the most part, there's a lot good there. I think the subtext is interesting. I think in the Barker verse, it is essential. Again,
it's one he personally wrote and directed.
Yeah, this is his third. His third directorial feature, and I think it's very competently directed.
I think this is something that, like we've said, I would have loved to have seen this serialized.
Yeah, it would have been great as a serialized.
I mean, even if he ended up turning it into like a line of like original graphic novels or something, that would have been fucking great.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I do feel like there's a lot they could have explored with some of the theme and subtext. Like, I think there's a lot more meat here than there is in the Hellraiser series, to be quite honest. And nobody seems to figure out can seem to figure out what to do with that concept.
Yeah.
Other than Barker. And anyway, but I mean, it's not a perfect film. I wouldn't even call it a great film, but it's good. It's fun. It's got Bakula. You totally love them and like them. Really good villains. Some scary stuff, some good gore, some interesting concepts in subtext.
And a very, very hot Famke Janssen.
Very, very hot pre-GoldenEye Famke Janssen, and a lot of creepy.
Pre-GoldenEye, yeah, that's right.
And a lot of creepy hippie people.
I am curious which one was filmed first, whether it was this or GoldenEye. I have a feeling that GoldenEye was actually probably filmed first, because those would have had.
The post-production on that would have been a lot.
Post-production would have been, because I think they started filming GoldenEye in 1994, and it didn't come out until like November of '95 or something. But
you're probably right.
But I know some of the other ones later were shortened, like production-wise. But I don't know. I'd be curious to find out which one was actually filmed first. But yeah.
But what about you? How many swords met flesh for you?
This is going to be interesting, because next week is going to be the movie that you're going to connect with, where I'm going to be like, I don't get it.
Yeah,
as much.
Probably.
With that being said, and obviously I came and I shocked the world. The underdog understood the movie in all of its levels.
It pulled the veil of death.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I pulled the veil back, ladies and gentlemen.
Pull the veil-
I
veil
am
of
going to
death.
juggle fire tonight. I'm going to give it 4.
Yeah,
I'm going to give
all
it
right.
4. This movie is one that I liked watching. I loved it when I saw the theatrical version. I realized, 22 and a half years later, my brain is a little bit better able to perceive some things. And I saw the theatrical version and I thought, it's like, yeah, I like it still. But I can't wait to see the director's cut because it's going to, I think, explore some things.
Yeah, and that came
a little
through
bit.
for you, huh?
And that came
Yeah.
through. And that really did come through. So I'm going to give it four swords.
4 swords.
Two
That
in my
flesh.
legs, one in my arm, one right through my balls.
Yeah, right through your nuts. Yeah.
Right through the balls.
Ow, my balls.
Ow, my balls.
Well,
Yeah.
So I think that's it.
Next week we've got another one. This is probably already a pretty long episode.
Yeah.
But that's all right.
I don't imagine next week being any shorter. There's
No,
there'll be a lot to talk about.
When these kind of movies really kind of connect with us from a historical standpoint, but also we sense some of those same things that we felt the first time seeing them or earlier on. We're going to have these kind of longer episodes. I mean, Candyman was already a long one too.
Yeah.
Because there were things to talk about. There were things to feel. There were personal stories about almost dying in the streets of Chicago.
Green, yeah.
And there are, I mean, it's just, I think these are things that are going to happen from time to time.
But please do come back, listen
Yes.
to us talk about Nightbreed, and maybe, just maybe, we'll murder the world together.
Oh, murder in the world. But hopefully before we murder the world, you can go check out some more stuff from us on filmseizure.com. Of course, hey, there's another thing that people can do.
Oh, what?
They can go to the SoundCloud.
Yes.
And they can actually subscribe and know when those new episodes hit.
Yes.
They don't have to wait for our post on Facebook or Twitter.
Please do that, actually.
So you can subscribe to us there and be notified when new things happen.
You'll be like in the know.
In the know. You can always download. I always make sure to make those downloadable so that you can take them on the go with you.
Take this with you on your runs, your
And
commutes, whatever it might be.
And if we do end up murdering the world and you accidentally run into a pit that is bottomless into a bowl of lava,
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, maybe we'll be there to resurrect you.
Or maybe we'll just be a flaming skeleton at the bottom. It's like, oh, we made a horrible mistake.
It's probably a 50-50.
Yeah. But yeah, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, all of which just search for Film Seizure will come up. You'll see our goofy mugs on there doing something, I'm sure. But until next week, when we round out Barker Bonanza. And we put Barker to rest until closer to October
when we have our special Hellraiser treat.
Yep. Again, spoilers. We're revealing all of our future plans.
We're giving away all the ghosts.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're resurrecting them.
Yes.
But anyway, until then, I am Geoff Arbuckle.
I'm Jason Oliver.
And we'll see you next week.
Time can